Seraphina Vale stood before her laptop screen, her hands trembling as she clutched the phone that had just fallen from her grasp. On social media, hundreds of photos showed her billionaire husband, Damian Cross, embracing another woman. Not a mistress, not a lover, but his legal wife, Celeste Cross. The name the world was celebrating as the woman behind the financial tycoon's success. And Seraphina? She had been erased. Every photo, every news item, every page of the newspaper, as if she had never existed. But they forgot one thing. Before becoming a ghost in this opulent house, Seraphina was Roman Vesper's woman, and Roman never forgot her. Follow this story to the end. Like and comment the city you're watching to let me know how far the story has progressed. Now, let's step into the hell Seraphina faces. The champagne glass hit the marble floor before Seraphina even registered she'd dropped it. The sound cracked through the penthouse silence like a gunshot, sharp and final. And for a moment, she just stood there watching golden liquid spread across white stone in slow motion. Her reflection stared back from the pooling champagne, distorted and unrecognizable. On the laptop screen in front of her, the images kept loading, one after another after another. Damian at the Met Gala. Damian at a charity auction in the Hamptons. Damian shaking hands with senators at a political fundraiser. Always the same woman beside him. Brunette. Polished. Smiling that practiced smile women learn when they're being photographed next to powerful men. Seraphina's throat constricted. She clicked another link. Then another. Her fingers moved mechanically across the trackpad, even though part of her brain was screaming to stop, to close the laptop, to go back to not knowing. But she couldn't stop, because every single caption said the same thing. Billionaire investor Damian Cross and his wife, Celeste Cross, attend Power Couple. Damian and Celeste Cross donate. Celeste Cross, wife of financial titan Damian Cross, stuns in wife, not mistress, not affair, not the other woman. Wife. Seraphina's hands were shaking so badly she had to grip the edge of the kitchen counter. The granite felt cold under her palms, solid and real, in a way nothing else did right now. She forced herself to breathe, in through the nose, out through the mouth, the way her old therapist taught her before she stopped going because Damian said therapy was self-indulgent. The earliest photo was dated 14 months ago, a gala at the Museum of Natural History. Damian in his Tom Ford tuxedo, the one Seraphina had helped him pick out. Celeste in emerald silk that probably cost more than most people's cars. They looked perfect together, like they'd been photoshopped into the same frame by a publicist with good taste. 14 months. Seraphina did the math automatically. 14 months ago, she'd been in this apartment, making Damian's favorite dinner, wearing the cashmere sweater he'd bought her because he said the color made her look softer. She'd been playing the role he'd written for her, the quiet wife, the invisible wife, the wife who stayed home while he built his empire. Only she hadn't been his wife. Not really. Not in the way that mattered. She scrolled faster now, clicking through society pages and business journals and gossip sites she'd never bothered reading before. Why would she? She trusted him. God, she'd actually trusted him. There were hundreds of photos, maybe thousands. Celeste at Damian's side for every major event of the past year. Celeste cutting ribbons at his new office building in Midtown. Celeste laughing at something he whispered in her ear during a black-tie dinner. Saw it. Celeste, Celeste, Celeste. And not a single mention of Seraphina Vale anywhere. It wasn't just replacement, it was erasure. Seraphina's stomach lurched. She barely made it to the bathroom before she threw up, champagne and bile burning her throat. She knelt on the cold tile floor, forehead pressed against the porcelain, trying to remember how to breathe again. When had it started? When had Damian decided she was disposable? Had it been gradual, her fading from his life like old wallpaper he stopped noticing? Or had there been a specific moment when he looked at her and thought, she's not enough anymore? She pulled herself up, splashed cold water on her face, and stared at the woman in the mirror. Pale skin, dark circles under gray eyes that used to be sharper, fiercer. Hair pulled back in a bun because Damian said loose hair looked unkempt. She wore a cream-colored sweater and yoga pants even though she hadn't done yoga in 3 years. She looked like a ghost. No wonder he replaced her. The thought came unbidden and vicious, cutting deeper than anything else. Maybe this was her fault. Maybe she'd let herself disappear so completely that Damian had no choice but to find someone more substantial, someone who took up space instead of apologizing for it. Seraphina gripped the edge of the sink until her knuckles went white. No, that wasn't right. That was the voice Damian had put in her head over 5 years of marriage. The voice that told her to be smaller, quieter, more convenient. The voice that convinced her invisibility was a virtue. She walked back to the laptop on shaking legs. This time she searched for something specific. Legal documents, financial records, anything that would explain how Damian had managed to build an entire second life without her noticing. It took 40 minutes of digging through his cloud storage. The password was still her birthday, which felt like a sick joke, before she found the folder. It was labeled Transition Strategy. Seraphina's blood went cold. She clicked it open. The first document was a legal memo dated 8 months ago. She skimmed the opening paragraph and felt the floor drop out from under her. Dissolution of marriage to Seraphina Cross, an optimal public positioning strategy. Her vision blurred. She blinked hard, forcing herself to keep reading. The memo laid it out in brutal corporate efficiency. Phase 1. Establish public separation narrative. Position Seraphina as struggling with private health issues to explain her absence from public life. Phase 2. Restructure asset distribution. Quietly transfer properties and accounts into protected vehicles. Phase 3. Introduce Celeste as close family friend, then romantic interest, then fiancé. Phase 4. Finalize settlement with Seraphina, ensuring minimal media attention and maximum NDA coverage. There was a timeline, a budget, a list of talking points for Damian's publicist. Seraphina was a problem to be managed, a liability to be minimized, a loose end to be tied up as cleanly as possible. She scrolled further, found architectural plans for a penthouse in Tribeca, purchased 6 months ago under an LLC that traced back to Damian's offshore holdings, found credit card statements for jewelry stores, boutiques, restaurants she'd never been to, found emails between Damian and his lawyers discussing the best way to protect assets during a divorce, found a draft press release announcing his engagement to Celeste Cross. Damian Cross, founder and CEO of Cross Capital Management, is pleased to announce his engagement to Celeste Whitmore Cross, renowned philanthropist and art consultant. The couple plans a private ceremony this fall. 3 months from now. Seraphina laughed. The sound came out broken and sharp, echoing off the kitchen walls. She laughed until tears ran down her face, until her ribs hurt, until the laughter turned into something that might have been sobbing, except she couldn't tell anymore. How long had he been planning this? How many times had he kissed her goodnight while mentally calculating the cost of erasing her from his life? The penthouse door opened. Seraphina froze. Damian walked in, loosening his tie, phone pressed to his ear. He was laughing at something whoever was on the other end said. His laugh, the one that used to make her stomach flutter, now it just made her feel sick. He noticed her standing in the kitchen and held up one finger. 1 minute. She watched him finish his call, watched him slip the phone into his pocket, watched him cross to the bar and pour himself 2 fingers of scotch like this was any other Thursday night. "You're up late," he said without looking at her. "I thought you'd be asleep by now." Seraphina's voice came out steady, too steady. "Who's Celeste?" The glass paused halfway to his mouth, just for a second. Then he took a sip, swallowed, and turned to face her. "A colleague." "Try again." Damian's jaw tightened. He set the glass down carefully, precisely, the way he did everything. "This isn't a conversation we need to have right now." "I found the files, Damian." Silence stretched between them like a wire pulled taut. "Which files?" His voice was very calm, too calm. "All of them." Seraphina gestured at the laptop. "The legal memos, the asset transfers, the timeline for replacing me, the press release about your engagement. Should I keep going?" Damian's expression didn't change. That was the thing about him. He'd spent 20 years in boardrooms learning how to show nothing, how to be carved from ice and titanium, how to look at another human being like they were a quarterly earnings report. "You went through my private files." "Your wife," Seraphina said. The word tasted like poison. "Celeste." "How long?" 18 months. The number hit her like a fist. 18 months. A year and a half. While she'd been choosing paint colors for the summer house in the Berkshires, while she'd been planning dinner parties for his investors, while she'd been playing the devoted wife for an audience of no one. And you married her? Legally? No. Publicly? Yes. He picked up his scotch again, took another sip. It was necessary. Necessary. Seraphina repeated the word slowly. You committed bigamy because it was necessary? Don't be dramatic. The marriage isn't legal. It's optics, strategy. You wouldn't understand. Try me. Damian sighed like she was being deliberately difficult. You stopped being useful, Seraphina. You stopped going to events, stopped networking, stopped being seen. Do you know what that looks like? A billionaire whose wife won't show her face in public? People talk. They wonder if there's abuse, addiction, mental illness. It damages credibility. So you replaced me. I adapted to changing circumstances. That's what successful people do. He drained his glass. Celeste understands the game. She knows how to work a room, how to build relationships, how to be an asset instead of a liability. She makes me look good. The words landed like punches, each one precise, each one designed to hurt. Seraphina felt something crack open inside her chest. Not her heart. That had stopped feeling things for Damian a long time ago, she realized now. Something older. Something she'd buried so deep she almost forgot it existed. When were you going to tell me? Her voice was still too steady, unnaturally steady. Or was I just supposed to wake up one day and find divorce papers on the counter? I was waiting for the right time. And when was that exactly? Before or after the engagement party? Damian's patience was clearly wearing thin. She could see it in the tightness around his eyes, the way his fingers drummed against the bar. You're making this more complicated than it needs to be. I've already had my lawyers draw up a settlement. You'll be comfortable, more than comfortable. All you have to do is sign the NDA and walk away quietly. Quietly. Yes. Quietly. No press, no social media, no dramatic scenes. He refilled his glass. You're good at being quiet, Seraphina. It's one of your few talents. The crack inside her chest split wider. I want you out of the apartment tonight, Damian continued. I've arranged a hotel suite, 5-star, very discreet. Take whatever you need. We'll handle the rest through lawyers. He was dismissing her. Actually dismissing her. Like she was an employee being let go. Like she was a problem solved. Seraphina looked at him. Really looked at him. For the first time in years. Saw the coldness she'd mistaken for strength. The calculation she'd mistaken for intelligence. The emptiness she'd mistaken for depth. And she realized something. She'd been so busy making herself small enough to fit into his life that she'd forgotten what she used to be. Before Damian, before the quiet apartment and the invisible existence and the careful disappearing act, before she'd run away from the only man who'd ever actually seen her. I'm not going anywhere, she heard herself say. Damian's expression flickered. Annoyance. Maybe a hint of surprise. Excuse me? You heard me? Seraphina. He used his boardroom voice now. The one that made junior executives stammer. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. The settlement is generous. You'll never have to work. You'll have enough money to disappear into whatever quiet life you want. Just take it and go. No. The word felt good in her mouth. Solid. Real. Damian's jaw clenched. What exactly do you think you're going to do? Fight me in court? I have an army of lawyers. I have resources you can't even imagine. I will bury you in legal fees and drag this out until you have nothing left. Maybe. Seraphina closed the laptop carefully. Or maybe I'll make a few phone calls of my own. To who? You don't have friends anymore. You don't have family. You have nothing. He was right. She'd let him isolate her completely, cut her off from everyone who mattered until her entire world was contained in this apartment. Everyone except one person. One person she'd sworn she'd never contact again. One person who'd told her 8 years ago that if she ever needed him, for anything, for any reason, all she had to do was call. Seraphina pulled her phone from her pocket. Damian watched her, that cold amusement playing at the corner of his mouth. Who are you calling? Your therapist? Your book club? She didn't answer, just scrolled through her contacts until she found the number she'd saved under a fake name. The number she'd never deleted even though she should have, even though keeping it was dangerous. The phone rang once, twice. On the third ring, a voice answered, low, rough, familiar in a way that made her chest ache. Seraphina, not a question. He'd known. Somehow he'd always known she'd call eventually. She looked at Damian standing there with his scotch and his arrogance and his absolute certainty that she was powerless. I need to see you, she said into the phone. The man on the other end was quiet for 3 seconds. Then, Tribeca, 1 hour, come alone. The line went dead. Seraphina pocketed her phone. Damian's smirk had vanished. His face had gone very still. Who was that? She walked past him toward the bedroom. Seraphina. His hand shot out, gripped her arm. Who did you just call? She looked down at his hand, then up at his face, and smiled for the first time in months. Someone who actually remembers who I am. She pulled free and kept walking. Behind her, she heard Damian's phone buzzing, heard him answer it, heard his voice go sharp with tension. What do you mean Roman Vesper's people just requested a meeting? What the hell does he want with... Seraphina closed the bedroom door on whatever he said next. Her hands were shaking again, but this time it wasn't from fear. She pulled out the suitcase from the back of the closet, started throwing clothes inside. Not the cashmere sweaters and neutral dresses Damian preferred. The things she'd shoved to the back. The black silk blouse she'd bought years ago and never worn. The leather jacket from before. The heels that made her taller instead of smaller. There was a burner phone in her jewelry box. Old. Probably dead. She'd kept it hidden for 8 years like a talisman, like proof that the person she used to be had actually existed. She plugged it in, waited. The screen flickered to life, one saved number, no name, and below it, a single text message from years ago that she'd never deleted. When you're ready to stop hiding, I'll be waiting. Seraphina grabbed her jacket and walked out. Damian was standing in the living room, phone pressed to his ear, his face pale for the first time since she'd known him. I don't care what it costs, he was saying. Find out what he wants. Find out what he knows. And find out who the hell told him about... He saw her with the suitcase. I'll call you back, he said into the phone. Then to her, where do you think you're going? Out. If you leave this apartment, I will freeze every account. I will lock you out of everything. You won't have access to a single cent. Seraphina paused at the door. Good thing I don't need your money anymore. You stupid girl. Damian's voice dropped to something dangerous. You have no idea what you're doing. Roman Vesper isn't some knight in shining armor. He's a criminal. He's dangerous. And if you think he gives a damn about you after all these years... He remembers my name, Seraphina said quietly. That's more than you ever did. She walked out and didn't look back. The elevator ride down felt like falling. 43 floors of polished mirrors and soft music, while her heart hammered against her ribs. By the time she reached the lobby, her phone was exploding with texts from Damian. She turned it off. Outside, the Manhattan night was muggy and thick with summer heat. Car horns, sirens, the smell of hot garbage and expensive perfume. The city she'd stopped noticing years ago because Damian's world existed above it all, insulated and separate. She hailed a cab, gave the driver the Tribeca address, watched the city blur past through tinted windows, and tried very hard not to think about what she was about to do. The building was unmarked, glass and steel, anonymous in the way that only obscenely expensive real estate can be, the kind of place designed to hide in plain sight. Seraphina paid the driver and stood on the sidewalk, staring up at mirrored windows that reflected nothing back. A man in a black suit appeared from nowhere, tall, built like he broke bones for a living. Ms. Vale, he said. Not a question. She nodded. He held the door open. The elevator required a key card. The man swiped his and pressed the button for the penthouse. They rode up in silence while Seraphina tried to remember how to breathe. 8 years. 8 years since she'd seen him. Since she'd chosen safety over chaos. Since she'd run as far and fast as she could from the man who'd loved her, like fire loves oxygen. The elevator doors opened onto a hallway that ended in a single door. It was already open. Seraphina stepped through. The penthouse was dark except for low lights that cast everything in amber shadow. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Hudson, the New Jersey skyline glittering across black water. The furniture was minimal, expensive, the kind of restraint that costs a fortune, and standing by the window, silhouetted against the city, was Roman Vesper. He didn't turn around. Turn. 8 years, he said quietly. You didn't call, didn't write, didn't let me know if you were alive or dead. His voice was exactly as she remembered, low and rough, like smoke over broken glass. I respected that, respected your choice, even though it nearly killed me. Seraphina's throat closed. But now you need something. Roman turned slowly. So here you are. The years had carved him sharper, harder, gray threaded through dark hair at his temples. Lines bracketed his mouth that hadn't been there before. But his eyes, God, his eyes were the same. Dark and depthless, and looking at her like she was the only real thing in the world. I'm sorry, Seraphina whispered. For what? Running? Marrying him? Roman crossed the room slowly, each step deliberate. Don't apologize for surviving, Seraphina. You did what you had to do. I didn't just run. You erased yourself. He stopped 3 feet away, close enough that she could smell cedar and smoke. You took everything that made you dangerous and beautiful and alive, and you buried it so deep you almost convinced yourself it never existed. Tears burned behind her eyes. I had to. I know. His hand lifted like he wanted to touch her face, then dropped. I know, sweetheart. That's the only reason I let you go. The endearment hit her like a bullet. Tell me what happened, Roman said. Tell me why you're here. So she did. She told him everything. The photos, the fake wife, the timeline for her erasure, Damian's cold dismissal, the legal documents, the engagement announcement. All of it spilled out in broken sentences while Roman listened with that absolute stillness that used to terrify her because it meant he was calculating exactly how much violence the situation required. When she finished, the silence stretched long enough that she started to doubt herself, started to wonder if coming here was a mistake. If she'd crossed a line she could never uncross. Then Roman walked to the bar and poured 2 glasses of whiskey. He handed her one. Tell me something, he said quietly. How badly do you want him ruined? Seraphina's hand trembled around the glass. I just want to disappear. No. Roman's eyes locked onto hers. No, you don't. If you wanted to disappear, you would have taken his settlement and vanished. But you didn't. You called me. And you don't call me for quiet exits, Seraphina. You call me for war. She opened her mouth to deny it, closed it. Because he was right. Somewhere between the champagne glass shattering and the taxi ride downtown, something inside her had shifted. Not broken, not cracked. Shifted, like a bone setting itself after years of being out of alignment. There's a gala in 2 weeks, Roman said. The Blackwell Foundation. Every power player in Manhattan will be there, including your husband and his replacement wife. Seraphina's pulse kicked. I know, Damian's been planning it for months. He's planning to announce his engagement there. Make it official. Put Celeste on display for everyone who matters. Roman took a sip of whiskey. What if you walked in before he got the chance? He'd have me thrown out. Not if you walked in with me. The air left her lungs. People are afraid of Damian Cross, Roman continued. They respect his money, his connections, his power. But they're afraid of me. And fear beats respect every time. He set his glass down. Walk into that gala on my arm, and nobody will be able to ignore you. Nobody will be able to erase you. You'll be the only thing they see. Seraphina's heart was hammering so hard she could barely think. Why would you do this? Roman smiled. It wasn't kind. Because 8 years ago, you chose him over me. And I've spent every day since wondering if I failed you somehow, if I made you feel like you had to run. He stepped closer. This is me giving you a choice, a real one. You can walk away right now, take his settlement, build a quiet life somewhere else. I'll make sure he never bothers you again. Or you let me remind the world who Seraphina Vale really is. His voice dropped lower. Not a ghost, not a liability, not something to be managed and erased, but a woman powerful enough that men like Damian Cross should have been terrified to lose her. The words wrapped around her like a physical thing. If I do this, Seraphina said slowly, there's no going back. No, Roman agreed. There's not. She thought about Damian's face when he told her to leave quietly, thought about Celeste smiling in those photos, oblivious to the machinery that had built her new life on the rubble of someone else's. Thought about the woman in the mirror who'd forgotten what she looked like when she took up space. Thought about the woman she used to be before she convinced herself that small and quiet and invisible was the same thing as safe. Okay, she whispered. Roman's expression shifted. Something fierce and almost gentle flickered behind his eyes. Okay? I want him to see me. The words came faster now. I want everyone to see me. I want them to know exactly what he tried to erase. Roman nodded once. Then we have 2 weeks to remind you who you are. He pulled out his phone and made a call. Marcus? I need a team. Full package. Hair, makeup, wardrobe, the works. Pause. 2 weeks. Yes, I'm serious. And Marcus? Nothing subtle. I want her to walk into that room and stop every conversation. Another pause. Then a smile that made Seraphina's stomach flip. Because we're going to war. He hung up, looked at her with those dark, depthless eyes that had always seen straight through every wall she'd ever built. Last chance, sweetheart. You sure about this? Seraphina thought about the champagne glass shattering, about the laptop screen full of photos that proved she'd been replaced and forgotten, about Damian's voice telling her she was only good at being quiet. She drained her whiskey in one burning swallow. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Roman's smile widened into something dangerous and beautiful. Then let's make sure Damian Cross regrets the day he decided you were disposable. The first 3 days, Seraphina barely slept. Roman's penthouse had a guest wing, all glass and steel and expensive silence. But she couldn't settle into it, couldn't stop pacing, couldn't stop checking her dead phone like Damian's threats might somehow reach through the battery she'd removed. She'd left everything behind. The credit cards, the bank access, the carefully curated life that had felt like drowning in slow motion. Now she had nothing except the clothes in her suitcase and a promise from a man she'd run from 8 years ago. On the 4th morning, Roman found her standing by the window at dawn, still wearing yesterday's clothes. You didn't sleep again, he said. Not a question. Seraphina didn't turn around. I keep thinking he's going to show up, break down the door, drag me back. He won't. You don't know Damian. When he wants something, I don't care what Damian wants. Roman's reflection appeared in the glass beside hers. He doesn't get to touch you anymore. Not physically, not legally, not at all. The certainty in his voice should have been comforting. Instead, it made her chest tight. This was a mistake, she whispered. Coming here, dragging you into this. I should just take his settlement and disappear somewhere he'll never find me. You could. Roman's hand came to rest on the window beside her head, not touching her, but close enough that she felt the heat of him. But that's not why you're here. Then why am I here? He was quiet for a long moment. Because you're tired of being afraid. The words hit something raw and true inside her. Seraphina closed her eyes. I don't even know who I am anymore. I spent 5 years turning myself into whatever Damian needed, and before that, her throat closed. Before that, I was whoever you needed. I've never just been me. Yes, you have. Roman's voice went rough. You were yourself the first time I saw you. Art gallery in Soho. You were wearing this red dress that should have been illegal and arguing with some pretentious collector about the male gaze in Renaissance painting. You eviscerated him. Didn't even raise your voice. Just carved him apart with facts until he walked away looking like he'd been mugged. Despite everything, Seraphina felt her mouth twitch. I don't remember that. I do. I remember thinking I'd never seen anyone so alive. He paused. Then you looked at me and I was done. Completely done. She opened her eyes. His reflection was watching her with that intensity that used to terrify her because it meant she mattered, really mattered, enough to be remembered in detail years later. I'm not that person anymore, she said quietly. No, Roman agreed. You're someone who survived 5 years of systematic erasure and didn't break. That's harder. Stronger. His hand moved from the window to her shoulder, just resting there, warm and solid. But if you want to walk away from this, from the gala, from Damian, from all of it. Tell me now. We'll make it happen. I'll set you up somewhere safe. New identity if you want it. Money, protection, whatever you need. Seraphina turned to face him. And if I want revenge? Something dark and hungry flickered across Roman's face. Then we make him bleed. The words should have shocked her, should have sent her running. Instead, she felt the crack inside her chest split wider, letting something cold and sharp and long buried finally breathe. I want him to know what it feels like, she heard herself say. To be erased, to be nothing, to watch someone else take everything that was supposed to be yours. Roman's smile was slow and vicious. Then let's get to work. The team arrived that afternoon. Marcus turned out to be a rail-thin man in his 50s with silver hair and eyes that cataloged Seraphina like she was a sculpture that needed restoration. He circled her twice without speaking, then nodded to himself. We can work with this, he said finally, but we're burning everything she's wearing. Excuse me? Seraphina looked down at her jeans and sweater. Damian's aesthetics, soft, muted, designed to make you forgettable. Marcus pulled a tablet from his bag and started swiping through images. We're going the opposite direction, sharp, bold, impossible to ignore. A woman with purple hair appeared carrying garment bags. Another followed with a professional makeup kit that looked like it cost more than a car. A third had a leather portfolio full of jewelry photographs. Try this first. Marcus handed Seraphina a black dress. She held it up. The fabric was liquid silk, cut on the bias, with a neckline that would make conservative bankers clutch their pearls. It's beautiful, she said slowly. But it's not really me. It's exactly you. Roman's voice came from across the room. He was leaning against the bar, watching. The you that Damian tried to kill. Put it on. Seraphina looked at the dress. At Marcus waiting with professional patience. At the team assembled to transform her into a weapon. She could still walk away. Still choose the quiet exit. Still disappear into a life that didn't require confrontation or conflict or deliberately provoking a man who'd already proven he could be ruthless. She took the dress into the bathroom. It fit like it had been sewn onto her body. The silk moved when she breathed, catching light, demanding attention. The neckline showed collarbones she'd forgotten she had. The hemline ended at a length Damian would have called inappropriate. She looked dangerous. She looked alive. When she stepped out, Marcus smiled for the first time. There she is. The next 6 hours blurred together. Seraphina stood while they pinned and measured and discussed her like she was a project instead of a person, tried on dress after dress until Marcus found the one he wanted for the gala. Black silk that looked almost liquid, cut to highlight every curve she'd been taught to hide. Then came the shoes, heels that added 3 inches and made her legs look endless. Marcus insisted on diamonds, not the tasteful studs Damian preferred, but chandelier earrings that caught light like weapons. Hair down, Marcus decided. Wild, like she just rolled out of someone's bed and didn't bother fixing it. That's... Seraphina started to protest. Perfect, Roman finished from across the room. His eyes hadn't left her. That's perfect. By the time the team left, the sun was setting and Seraphina's head was spinning. She stood in front of the full-length mirror in her guest room, looking at clothes and jewelry that cost more than most people made in a year. A knock on the door. Come in, she said without turning around. Roman entered carrying 2 glasses of wine. He handed her one and stood beside her, both of them looking at her reflection. You're thinking too hard, he said. I'm thinking about how much this costs, how much you're spending on... Don't. His voice went sharp. Don't reduce this to money. I'm not Damian. I'm not buying you. I'm giving you armor. Seraphina took a shaky breath. Why? Why what? Why are you doing this after everything, after I left, after I chose him? She finally looked at him directly instead of through the mirror. I destroyed you, Roman. I know I did, so why help me now? Roman was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful, controlled. You want the truth? Please. Because I never stopped loving you. The words came out flat, factual, like he was admitting something he'd already accepted. I tried, spent 8 years trying, but every woman I met, every conversation I had, every goddamn morning I woke up, you were there. This ghost I couldn't shake. He paused. When you called, I thought maybe I'd finally get closure, finally be able to let you go. And now? Now I know I'm completely fucked. He smiled without humor. Because you're standing here looking like every dangerous fantasy I've ever had. And in 2 weeks, I'm going to watch you walk into that gala and destroy Damian Cross. And then you're going to walk back out of my life again. And I'm going to let you. Because that's what you need. Seraphina's throat closed. Roman, don't. He stepped back. Don't apologize. Don't explain. We both know how this ends. I'm making peace with it. He turned to leave. Wait! Seraphina caught his arm. What if I don't want to leave? Roman went very still. Don't. Don't what? Don't offer me something you're not ready to give. His jaw was tight. You spent 5 years with a man who turned you into a ghost. You need time to figure out who you are without someone else defining it. I get that. I respect that. But don't, his voice roughened. Don't look at me like that unless you mean it. Like what? Like I'm home. The word hung between them. Seraphina's hand was still on his arm. She could feel his pulse under her fingers. Fast, unsteady, nothing like the controlled exterior he showed the world. I'm not asking for promises, she said quietly. I'm not asking for forever. I'm just asking. She swallowed hard. Can I stay? After the gala? After Damian? Can I just stay here for a while? Roman closed his eyes. You're killing me. Is that a no? It's a, you can stay as long as you need. He opened his eyes, and the naked want in them made her stomach drop. But Seraphina, if you stay, I'm going to fall deeper in love with you every single day. And when you eventually leave, it's going to destroy me. So if you're not sure, she kissed him. Didn't think about it, didn't plan it, just rose onto her toes and pressed her mouth to his and felt 8 years of careful distance shatter like glass. Roman made a sound low in his throat. His hands came up to frame her face, thumbs brushing her cheekbones, and he kissed her back like a man drowning, like she was air, like 8 years hadn't been enough time to forget the exact way she tasted. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Seraphina rested her forehead against his. I'm not sure about anything, she whispered, except that being near you feels more real than the last 8 years combined. Roman's laugh was shaky. That's a low bar. I know. She pulled back enough to meet his eyes. But it's honest. He studied her face like he was looking for cracks, for places she might break. Okay. Okay. You can stay. We'll figure out the rest later. He stepped back, putting careful distance between them. But right now we have a gala to plan. And if we're doing this, we're doing it right. Over the next 10 days, Roman became a general orchestrating a war. He had files on every person who'd be at the Blackwell Gala, knew their businesses, their marriages, their secrets, knew exactly which ones mattered and which were just expensive furniture. Damian's power comes from perception, he explained one night, spreading documents across the dining table. Everyone thinks he's untouchable, that his money makes him invincible. We're going to prove that's a lie. Seraphina looked in the papers, financial records, legal documents, photographs of Damian with various power players. How? By making you more interesting than him. Roman tapped a photo of a silver-haired man in an expensive suit. Senator Michaels. He's been looking for an excuse to distance himself from Damian since that banking scandal last year. You walk in on my arm, you become that excuse. I don't understand. Damian replaced you publicly, made you disappear. Everyone who knows him saw it happen and did nothing because they thought you were nobody. Roman's smile was sharp. But if nobody turns out to be important enough that Roman Vesper brings her to the most exclusive event of the season, suddenly everyone has to reconsider. Suddenly they're worried they backed the wrong horse. That's insane. That's politics. He pulled out another photo. This one showed a woman in her 60s wearing emeralds. Catherine Ashford, old money, runs half the charity boards in Manhattan. She hated that Damian publicly humiliated you, thought it showed poor character. She'll be delighted to see you resurface. Seraphina's head was spinning. You really think this will work? I think you showing up alive and beautiful and clearly unbothered will make Damian look exactly like what he is. A small man who throws away valuable things because he doesn't know what he has. The words settled into her bones. Over the next week, Roman coached her. Not on what to say, he was clear about that. Just be yourself. The real yourself. The woman who used to destroy collectors and art galleries. She's still in there. But he did prepare her for Damian's reactions. He'll try to control the narrative, Roman said. Make you seem unstable or vindictive. Don't engage, don't defend, just exist. Your presence is the weapon. 3 days before the gala, Seraphina's carefully maintained composure cracked. She was going through the dress one final time with Marcus when her old phone, the one she'd charged out of morbid curiosity, started buzzing with missed voicemails. Dozens of them. Against her better judgment, she listened to the first one, Damian's voice. Smooth, controlled. Seraphina, this is childish. Whatever point you're trying to make, you've made it. Come home. We'll discuss the settlement like adults. The second one was less controlled. I know you're with Vesper. Do you have any idea what you're doing? He's using you to get to me. You're a pawn, Seraphina. Nothing more. The third one made her hands shake. You think you can embarrass me? Humiliate me publicly? I made you. You were nobody before me, and you'll be nobody after. Come home now, or I'll make sure you have nothing. No settlement, no reputation, nothing. The fourth voicemail wasn't Damian. It was Celeste. Seraphina? The woman's voice was shaky, young. I don't know if you'll get this, but I needed you to know I didn't know about you. Damian told me you were separated, that it was amicable, that you'd moved on. A pause. I saw the photos from the transition timeline. I know what he did now, and I'm so sorry. Seraphina's breath caught. He's not who I thought he was, Celeste continued. He's been... God, I can't even say it out loud, but you need to be careful. He's planning something. I heard him on the phone talking about the gala, about making sure you're handled appropriately. I don't know what that means, but it scared me. Please, just be careful. The message ended. Seraphina stood frozen, phone clutched in white-knuckled hands. Roman appeared in the doorway. What happened? She played him the voicemail. His expression went carefully blank. She could be lying. Could be part of his strategy. I don't think so. Seraphina played it again, listening to the genuine fear in Celeste's voice. She sounds terrified. Scared people do stupid things. Or brave things. Seraphina looked at him. What if she's telling the truth? What if Damian's planning something worse than just embarrassment? Roman's jaw tightened. Then we plan for that too. Over the next 48 hours, Roman's security protocols intensified. More men in black suits appearing and disappearing. Encrypted phone calls at odd hours. Blueprints of the gala venue spread across tables with exits marked in red. Seraphina caught fragments of conversations. 3 extraction points. If he tries anything physical, Senator Michaels agreed to run interference. She wanted to ask what they were preparing for. Wanted to know exactly what level of danger she'd walked into. But part of her already knew. Damian didn't lose gracefully. She'd seen him destroy business rivals who crossed him. Watched him systematically dismantle a journalist's career for writing an unflattering profile. He was methodical, patient, ruthless. And she'd just declared war. The night before the gala, Seraphina couldn't sleep again. She found Roman in his office at 2 a.m, surrounded by paperwork and screens showing security camera feeds. You should be resting, he said without looking up. So should you. I'll rest when this is over. He finally looked at her, dark circles under his eyes, hair disheveled from running his hands through it. You scared? Terrified. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. He pushed back from the desk. But if you want to call it off, I don't. Seraphina, so... I don't, she repeated firmly. I've spent 8 years running from confrontation, from discomfort, from anything that might make me visible. I'm done running. Roman studied her for a long moment. Then he stood, crossed to her, and cupped her face in both hands. You know, once we do this, there's no going back. Damian will come after you with everything he has. It won't be clean, it won't be quiet, it will be ugly and public and brutal. I know. And you're still sure? Instead of answering, Seraphina pulled out her phone. opened the folder of photos she'd saved. Damian and Celeste at gala after gala. The transition timeline, the legal memos treating her like a problem to be managed. He tried to erase me, she said quietly. Made me disappear while he built a new life on top of my grave. I want him to know I'm alive. I want everyone to know. She looked up at Roman. I want him to see exactly what he threw away. Roman's thumb brushed across her cheekbone. Then tomorrow night, we make sure the whole world sees you. He kissed her forehead and stepped back. Get some sleep, he said. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. But Seraphina stood in the doorway, watching him return to his screens and security feeds, and felt something shift inside her chest. Not fear, not doubt. Something harder, colder, more certain. Tomorrow night, she was walking into a room full of Manhattan's elite, wearing armor made of silk and diamonds. She was walking in beside a man powerful enough that people crossed streets to avoid displeasing him. She was walking in as living proof that Damian Cross's carefully constructed narrative was a lie, and there would be no going back. The day of the gala arrived with gray skies and thick humidity that made the city feel like it was holding its breath. Marcus and his team arrived at noon. They worked in focused silence. Hair, makeup, nails, every detail calibrated for maximum impact. Seraphina sat perfectly still while they transformed her, watching her reflection change in stages. The soft, forgettable woman Damian preferred disappeared. Something sharper emerged. Dangerous. Unignorable. The black silk dress fit like a second skin. The diamonds at her ears and throat caught light like warning flares. Her hair fell in dark waves that looked artfully undone. Bedroom hair, Marcus called it. Makeup that made her eyes look huge and her mouth look like a dare. When it was done, Marcus stepped back with satisfaction. He's going to lose his mind. That's the idea, Roman said from the doorway. He was wearing a black suit that probably cost more than a car, custom-tailored, perfectly fitted. He looked like money and danger and power consolidated into human form. Their eyes met in the mirror. You ready? He asked. Seraphina stood. The heels made her taller, the dress made her feel invincible. Yes. Remember, you don't have to prove anything to anyone. You just have to exist. Your presence is enough. She nodded. Roman offered his arm. Then let's go remind them who you are. The car ride to the venue was silent. Roman's hand rested on her knee, grounding, steady. Outside, the city blurred past in streams of light and shadow. Seraphina's heart hammered against her ribs. She kept running through worst-case scenarios, Damian having her thrown out, causing a scene, publicly humiliating her in ways she couldn't predict. Breathe, Roman murmured. She realized she'd been holding her breath. The car pulled up to the Blackwell Foundation building. Red carpet, photographers, camera flashes exploding like small bombs. Last chance, Roman said quietly. We can turn around right now. Seraphina looked at the cameras. The crowd. The entrance where Damian was probably inside, confident and secure in his carefully rebuilt world. No, she said. I'm done hiding. Roman's smile was proud and fierce. Then let's make an entrance. The car door opened. Camera flashes erupted immediately. Roman stepped out first, buttoning his jacket with casual precision. Then he turned and offered his hand. Seraphina took it. The moment her heels touched red carpet, the noise level changed. Photographers started shouting questions. Cameras swung toward them. People on the sidelines craned to see who'd arrived with Roman Vesper. Then recognition hit. Seraphina heard her name ripple through the crowd like a shockwave. Is that Seraphina Cross? I thought she... Oh my God, she's with Roman Vesper. Roman's hand settled against her back. Possessive, protective, unmistakable. They walked the carpet slowly. Roman stopped twice to speak with reporters he knew. Each time, he introduced Seraphina by name, made sure everyone saw her, heard her, knew she existed. By the time they reached the entrance, Seraphina's face hurt from holding a smile that felt more like baring teeth. Inside, the ballroom was exactly as she remembered from the planning documents she'd seen in Damian's files months ago. Crystal chandeliers, orchestra playing soft jazz. Manhattan's wealthiest and most powerful circulating with champagne glasses and practiced smiles. And there, across the room, standing beside Celeste, in an ice blue gown, Damian. He saw her at the exact moment she saw him. His champagne glass stopped halfway to his mouth. His expression, always so controlled, so carefully neutral, cracked. Just for a second, but long enough for Seraphina to see genuine shock. Then his eyes moved to Roman, and shock became something darker. Seraphina felt Roman's hand press slightly against her back, steadying, reminding her she wasn't alone. They crossed the ballroom slowly. People parted without thinking about it, Roman's reputation creating space around them. Conversations died as they passed. Heads turned, whispers spread like wildfire. Catherine Ashford appeared first, the society matron with emeralds and old money. She took Seraphina's hands with genuine warmth. "My dear girl," she said, "how wonderful to see you looking so well. Not alive, not recovered, just well, like Seraphina's absence had been a choice instead of an erasure." Senator Michaels materialized next, shook Roman's hand, kissed Seraphina's. "Mrs. Cross, a pleasure as always." Others followed, people Seraphina barely remembered from Damian's events, all of them suddenly eager to acknowledge her, to be seen speaking with her, to align themselves with Roman Vesper's companion. Across the room, Damian was watching with a smile that looked carved from ice. Celeste touched his arm, said something Seraphina couldn't hear. Damian shook his head sharply. Celeste's face fell. Then Damian started crossing the ballroom toward them. "Here we go," Roman murmured. His hand stayed on Seraphina's back. "Remember, you don't owe him anything. Not explanations, not justifications, nothing." Damian stopped 3 feet away. Up close, Seraphina could see the tension in his jaw, the way his hands were clenched just slightly too tight around his champagne glass. "Seraphina." His voice was perfectly controlled. "What a surprise." "Damian." She kept her voice level, pleasant. "You're looking well." His eyes flickered to Roman. "Vesper." Roman smiled. It wasn't friendly. "Cross." The silence stretched. People around them had stopped even pretending not to watch. "I wasn't aware you'd be attending," Damian said to Seraphina. Still so controlled, so careful. "Last-minute decision." "I see." His gaze moved over her dress. The diamonds, the heels, everything Damian had spent 5 years teaching her not to wear. "You look different." "I feel different." Seraphina met his eyes directly. "Turns out freedom agrees with me." Something flickered across Damian's face. Anger, maybe, or fear. "We should talk. Privately." "I don't think so." "Seraphina." His voice dropped to something harder. "Don't make this difficult." Roman's hand shifted on her back. "A question. Do you need me to step in?" Seraphina touched his wrist. "I've got this." "You made this difficult," she said quietly to Damian. "You made this choice. You replaced me, erased me, planned my exit like I was a failing business venture. So no, Damian, we're not talking privately. We're not talking at all." People were definitely listening now. Seraphina could feel their attention like physical pressure. Damian's smile was vicious. "You have no idea what you're doing. Coming here with him." He gestured at Roman with his champagne glass. "You think this makes you powerful? You're a joke, Seraphina. My lawyers will bury you. The settlement offer is off the table. You'll get nothing." "I don't want your money." "Then what do you want?" Seraphina looked at him, really looked at him, and felt nothing. No love, no anger, no attachment at all. Just vague pity for a man small enough to think control was the same thing as power. "I want you to see me," she said quietly, "really see me, and know that you had something real, and you threw it away for appearances." Damian's face went white. Before he could respond, Celeste appeared at his elbow. She looked pale, frightened. Her eyes met Seraphina's with something that might have been apology. "Damian," she said softly, "people are staring. Let them, please." Celeste's hand tightened on his arm. "Not here." For a moment, Damian looked like he might explode, might cause the exact scene his lawyers had spent months trying to avoid. Then his careful control slammed back into place. "This isn't over," he said to Seraphina. "Yes," she replied. "It is." She turned her back on him and walked away. Roman stayed at her side, steady, silent, letting her set the pace. They made it halfway across the ballroom before Seraphina's legs started shaking. Roman guided her onto a balcony, empty, blessedly quiet, and she gripped the railing with both hands. "Breathe," he said. She breathed. Her whole body was trembling, adrenaline crashing. She'd just publicly confronted her husband in front of Manhattan's elite, had ended her marriage in the most visible way possible. There was no going back now. "You did good," Roman said quietly. His hand found the small of her back again. "Really good." Seraphina laughed. It came out shaky. "I think I'm going to be sick." "That's normal." "How is this normal? You just declared war on one of the most powerful men in Manhattan. Adrenaline dump is expected." His hand moved in slow circles. "Grounding." "But you stood your ground, didn't flinch. He's the one who looked weak." Seraphina turned to face him. "What happens now?" Roman's expression was serious. "Now he retaliates, quietly at first. Legal pressure, financial manipulation. He'll try to make your life hell while maintaining plausible deniability. And then we make sure everyone knows exactly who Damian Cross really is." Before Seraphina could ask what that meant, voices erupted from inside the ballroom, loud, angry, the kind of commotion that makes everyone stop and stare. Roman's expression sharpened. "Stay here." He moved toward the door, but Seraphina followed. Inside, a crowd had gathered near the entrance. Phones out, cameras flashing. Someone was shouting, but Seraphina couldn't see over the heads. Then the crowd shifted and she saw Celeste, standing in the middle of the ballroom, microphone in shaking hands, tears streaming down her face, and she was talking. "Didn't know," Celeste was saying, her voice cracked. "I swear I didn't know he was still married. He told me it was over, that they'd been separated for years, that she'd moved on. He showed me papers, made it seem real." "Celeste, stop." Damian's voice, furious, desperate, but Celeste kept talking. "There's more," she said. "There's so much more. The offshore accounts, the fraud, the bribes. I found all of it, and I can't keep pretending anymore." She pulled a USB drive from her clutch and held it up like evidence. The ballroom erupted. Cameras flashed. Reporters surged forward. People started shouting questions. And Damian looked like his entire world was collapsing in real time. His eyes found Seraphina across the chaos, and in them she saw something she'd never seen before. Terror. Roman's hand found Seraphina's. "We need to leave. Now!" "But now, Seraphina." He pulled her toward a side exit. Behind them, the ballroom descended into complete chaos. Security trying to control the crowd. Reporters shouting. Celeste sobbing into the microphone. Damian screaming for his lawyers. They burst onto a side street where Roman's car was already waiting. "How did you—" Seraphina started. "Planned exit routes. Always have planned exit routes." He pushed her into the car. "Go. Don't stop." The car pulled away as sirens started wailing in the distance. Seraphina twisted to look out the back window. The gala venue was chaos. Police arriving, reporters swarming, camera flashes turning the night into artificial daylight. "What just happened?" she whispered. Roman's expression was carefully neutral. "Celeste happened. Did you plan that?" "No." He met her eyes. "But I'm not surprised. Women trapped in Damian's machinery tend to break spectacularly." Seraphina's hands were shaking again. "He's going to come after me. He's going to think I put her up to it." "Let him come." Roman's voice went hard. "He's got bigger problems now than you." The car sped through Manhattan streets while Seraphina's phone started buzzing. News alerts, text messages, voice calls from numbers she didn't recognize. She turned it off, leaned back against expensive leather, and realized with absolute devastating certainty. There was no going back. Not to Damian, not to her old life, not to the quiet, invisible existence she'd built like a bomb shelter. She'd stepped into the light, and now the whole world was watching. The penthouse was dark when they arrived. Roman moved through it like a ghost, checking windows, drawing curtains, killing lights, until they existed in near total blackness, except for the glow of the city through glass. Seraphina stood in the middle of the living room, still wearing the black dress, still shaking from adrenaline that had nowhere to go. Her phone, powered back on against her better judgment, wouldn't stop buzzing. Notifications scrolling past too fast to read. She finally looked. The footage was everywhere. Celeste's confession had gone viral within minutes. Every major news outlet, every gossip site, social media exploding with reactions. The USB drive she'd held up apparently contained financial records linking Damian to fraud schemes spanning years, offshore accounts, bribed officials, tax evasion so extensive it made white-collar crime look like performance art. And in every video, every photo, every frame of footage, there was Seraphina in the background, standing beside Roman Vesper, looking like she'd orchestrated the whole thing. "This is bad," she whispered. Roman appeared with whiskey, pressed a glass into her hands. "Drink." She drank. The burn helped. "Damian's gonna think I planned this with Celeste," Seraphina said. Her voice sounded distant, disconnected. "He's gonna come after me with everything he has. He's gonna be too busy dealing with federal investigators." Roman's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his expression tightened. 3 different agencies just opened cases. FBI, IRS, SEC. Celeste gave them everything. "How do you know that?" "I have friends in useful places." He pocketed the phone. "Point is, Damian's empire is burning. He doesn't have time to worry about revenge." Seraphina wanted to believe that. Wanted to feel relief or vindication or anything other than this cold dread settling into her bones. Instead, she felt exposed, visible in ways that made her skin crawl. "I need to call her," she said suddenly. "Celeste, I need to know if she's safe." "Leave it alone." "She just destroyed her life for herself," Roman cut in. "Not for you. Don't make her your responsibility." But Seraphina was already scrolling through contacts. Found Celeste's number from the voicemail she'd saved. Hit call. It rang 4 times before a shaking voice answered. "Seraphina? Are you okay? Where are you?" Celeste laughed. It sounded broken. "Hotel. I don't know which one. Roman's people grabbed me after Her voice cracked. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to make things worse for you. I just couldn't keep lying, couldn't keep pretending he was—" "You did the right thing," Seraphina said softly. "Did I?" Celeste's breathing was ragged. "Because it feels like I just blew up my entire existence for a man who is using both of us." The words hit harder than they should have. "He's good at that," Seraphina said, "making people feel like they're nothing without him." "How did you survive it? 5 years married to him. How did you not lose your mind?" Seraphina looked at Roman standing by the window, silhouetted against city lights. "I almost did. Then I remembered I had a choice." "What choice?" "To stop being what he needed and start being what I wanted." Celeste was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know what I want anymore." "Then take time to figure it out. You're safe. That's what matters." After Celeste hung up, Seraphina stood holding her phone like it might explode. The reality of what had just happened was starting to sink in. Celeste had committed social suicide. Damian's world was collapsing. And Seraphina was suddenly the most visible woman in Manhattan. "I need to get out of this dress," she said. Roman nodded. "I'll make food. You haven't eaten since this morning." She changed into borrowed sweats and a t-shirt, scrubbed off makeup that felt like war paint, pulled her hair into a knot, stared at herself in the bathroom mirror, and barely recognized the woman looking back. Who was she now? Not Damian's wife. Not Roman's lost love. Not the quiet ghost who'd spent 5 years apologizing for existing. Someone else. Someone undefined. Someone terrifying. She found Roman in the kitchen assembling sandwiches with the focused precision he brought to everything. 2 plates, cut diagonally. Like domesticity was just another operation to execute flawlessly. "Eat," he said. She ate, didn't taste it, just swallowed mechanically while her brain tried to process the last 6 hours. "What happens now?" she asked finally. Roman leaned against the counter. "Now we wait. Damian's lawyers will try to contain the damage. Celeste's evidence gets turned over to federal prosecutors. The media feeds on it for a few weeks until the next scandal. And you, and I what? You rebuild." He said it like it was simple. "You figure out who Seraphina Vale is when nobody's defining her." "I don't know how to do that." "Then you learn." The words should have been encouraging. Instead, they felt like a prison sentence. Seraphina pushed her plate away. I'm tired. Then sleep. But she couldn't sleep. She lay in the guest room staring at the ceiling while her mind raced, kept replaying Damian's face when Celeste started talking, the terror in his eyes, the realization that everything he'd built was crumbling. She should feel vindicated, should feel powerful. Instead, she felt hollow. Around 3 a.m, her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Then muscle memory took over and she pressed accept. Seraphina. A woman's voice, clipped, professional. This is Margaret Chen, attorney representing Damian Cross. We need to talk. Seraphina sat up. It's 3 a.m. Yes, and my client is currently being detained for questioning by federal investigators, which means we have a narrow window to discuss settlement terms before this becomes significantly more complicated. I don't want his money. This isn't about money. Margaret's voice was ice. This is about damage control. You were at the gala tonight. You were photographed with Roman Vesper. You're being positioned as either a co-conspirator or a victim, and right now the narrative is unclear. I'm neither. That's not how the press sees it, and it's certainly not how federal prosecutors will see it when they start digging into your marriage. A pause. They're going to want to know what you knew, when you knew it, why you stayed quiet for 5 years. Seraphina's blood went cold. I didn't know anything. Can you prove that? What? Can you prove you had no knowledge of your husband's financial crimes? Because from where I'm sitting, you lived in his house, had access to his accounts, attended events with the same people he was defrauding. Claiming ignorance is going to be difficult. The room tilted. I had nothing to do with any of this, Seraphina said. Her voice came out thin, desperate. Then you need a lawyer, a good one. Because the moment federal investigators decide you're a person of interest, your life becomes a legal nightmare. Margaret's tone didn't change. Damian is willing to provide representation. Make sure you're protected. All you have to do is sign a statement saying you had no knowledge of tonight's events, that you were as shocked as anyone by Celeste's revelations. That's the truth. Then it should be easy to sign. Every instinct Seraphina had screamed trap. What's the catch? No catch. Just clarity. You sign the statement. We make sure the press knows you're a victim, not a participant. Everyone moves on. And Damian? My client's legal troubles are separate from your protection. Margaret's voice went harder. But if you refuse to cooperate, if you continue appearing publicly with known criminals like Roman Vesper, if you do anything that makes you look complicit, prosecutors will have questions, very uncomfortable questions. Seraphina's hands were shaking. I need to think about it. You have until noon tomorrow. After that, my client's offer of legal protection expires. Margaret paused. And Seraphina? If federal investigators come knocking, you're going to wish you'd taken the help when it was offered. The line went dead. Seraphina sat frozen, phone clutched in white-knuckled hands. She should tell Roman, should wake him up and explain what Margaret had just threatened, but something stopped her. What if Margaret was right? What if prosecutors did think she was involved? She'd lived with Damian for 5 years, had access to files, accounts, information. The fact that she'd never looked, never questioned, never suspected, would that matter? Or would they see a woman who'd benefited from criminal enterprise and claimed ignorance when it collapsed? She pulled up news articles on her phone, started reading about spousal liability and white-collar crime, found case after case of wives dragged into legal nightmares because they'd been married to men who committed fraud. Some went to prison. Most lost everything. All of them spent years fighting to prove innocence while their lives disintegrated. By the time sun started bleeding through the windows, Seraphina had made a decision. She found Roman in his office, already dressed, already working. We need to talk, she said. He looked up, saw something in her face that made him stand. What happened? Damian's lawyer called. She said federal investigators are going to come after me, that I could be charged as an accomplice. Roman's expression went very still. What exactly did she say? Seraphina repeated the conversation, watched Roman's jaw tighten with every word. It's a scare tactic, he said when she finished. Margaret Chen is one of the best defense attorneys in the country. She's trying to terrify you into cooperating. What if she's right? She's not. But what if she is? Seraphina's voice rose. What if prosecutors think I knew? What if they charge me? I can't go through a federal investigation. I can't spend years fighting charges while my face is plastered across every news outlet as Damian Cross's criminal wife. Then we get you a lawyer, a real one, someone who'll actually protect your interests instead of Damian's. With what money? You? I can't ask you to pay for... You're not asking. I'm offering. Roman crossed to her. Seraphina, listen to me. Margaret is playing on your fear. That's what she does. She finds the thing that terrifies you most and uses it as leverage. It's working. I know. His hands found her shoulders, steady, grounding. But signing that statement would be a mistake. It would tie you to Damian's narrative, make you dependent on his legal team. You'd be trading one prison for another. Seraphina closed her eyes. I just want this to be over. It will be, but not like this. She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that Roman's confidence wasn't misplaced, but the fear Margaret had planted was growing roots. The next few days blurred together. News cycles devoured Damian's scandal. Federal investigators raided his offices. Assets got frozen. Business partners fled like rats from a sinking ship. And through it all, Seraphina's name kept appearing. Damian Cross's estranged wife. The woman who'd appeared with Roman Vesper hours before everything collapsed. Some articles painted her as a victim. Others implied she'd known all along. A few suggested she'd been working with Celeste to take Damian down. None of them knew the truth, that she'd been as blind as everyone else. Maybe more so. Roman hired her a lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia Reeves, who specialized in white-collar defense. Patricia spent 3 hours interviewing Seraphina, taking notes, building a timeline of what she knew and when. You're clean, Patricia said finally. No evidence of knowledge or participation, no communications with Celeste prior to the gala, no financial benefit from Damian's schemes. Everything was in his name, his accounts, his control. So I'm safe? From criminal charges? Almost certainly. From being subpoenaed as a witness? No. They're going to want you to testify about Damian's behavior, his associates, anything you might have seen. Seraphina's stomach dropped. I don't know anything useful. You know enough. 5 years of marriage means you were present for conversations, meetings, events. Even if you weren't paying attention, you witnessed things. Patricia closed her laptop. The question is whether you're willing to cooperate. What if I refuse? Then you risk contempt charges. Or worse, prosecutors might decide non-cooperation indicates guilt. Patricia's expression was carefully neutral. My professional advice? Cooperate fully. Answer their questions. Make it clear you were an uninformed spouse, not a co-conspirator. After Patricia left, Seraphina stood at the window, staring at the city. The same view she'd been looking at for 2 weeks. The same expensive prison with better furniture. You okay? Roman's voice behind her. Patricia says I have to testify. I know. I was listening. Of course he was. Roman didn't miss anything. I don't want to, Seraphina said quietly. I don't want to sit in some federal courthouse and answer questions about my marriage while lawyers pick apart every conversation I can't remember. Then don't. She turned. Patricia said, Patricia works for me. She gives legal advice, but the choice is yours. Roman's expression was unreadable. If you want to refuse, we'll deal with the consequences. Why would you do that? Risk contempt charges, legal complications, all for me? Roman was quiet for a long moment. Because I know what it's like to be forced into cooperating with people you don't trust. And I promised myself I'd never put you in that position. The words settled between them like a confession. Seraphina opened her mouth to respond. Her phone rang. Unknown number again. She answered without thinking. Hello? Mrs. Cross? A man's voice, formal, official. This is Special Agent Morrison with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. We need you to come in for questioning regarding your husband's financial activities. The floor dropped out. When? Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., Federal Plaza. Bring your attorney. A pause. This isn't optional, Mrs. Cross. We can do this voluntarily, or we can issue a subpoena. Your choice. I'll be there. She hung up, looked at Roman. They want me tomorrow, she said. Her voice sounded far away. FBI, 9 a.m. Roman's expression hardened. I'll call Patricia. She already knows what I'm going to say, that I didn't know anything, that Damian kept me isolated and ignorant for 5 years. Seraphina laughed. It sounded brittle. Which is the truth. I was so busy being the perfect invisible wife that I never noticed my husband was running a criminal empire. Seraphina, I need air. She walked onto the balcony. Cold wind hit her face. Below, the city moved on. People living normal lives. People who weren't married to criminals. People who made better choices. Roman followed, but didn't touch her. Just stood close enough that she could feel his presence. What if they don't believe me? Seraphina asked. What if they think I'm lying? That I knew and stayed quiet because I liked the money and the lifestyle? Then we prove them wrong. How? By telling the truth. By showing them bank records proving you had no access. Communication logs showing Damian controlled everything. Witness statements from people who saw how isolated you were. Roman's voice was steady. You're not guilty, Seraphina. Fear doesn't change that. She wanted to believe him. But that night, lying awake in the guest room, all she could think about was sitting across from federal agents while they asked questions designed to trap her. While they looked for inconsistencies. While they decided whether she was a victim or a criminal. The morning came too fast. Patricia met her at Federal Plaza wearing a suit that probably cost more than most cars. She walked Seraphina through the process. What to expect. How to answer. When to let Patricia intervene. Keep answers short, Patricia said. Don't volunteer information. If you don't remember something, say so. Don't guess. They rode the elevator in silence. The interview room was exactly like TV shows depicted. Gray walls, fluorescent lights, table bolted to the floor. 2 agents waited. Morrison, who'd called, and a woman who introduced herself as Agent Park. The questions started simple. How long were you married to Damian Cross? Where did you live? Did you work? Did you have access to his business accounts? Seraphina answered mechanically, focused on staying calm, on not letting fear show. Then the questions got harder. Did you ever notice unusual financial activity? No. Large cash deposits? Offshore transfers? I didn't have access to those accounts. But you lived in the home. You must have seen something. I saw what Damian wanted me to see. Agent Park leaned forward. Mrs. Cross, we've reviewed your financial history. For 5 years, you had no income, no personal accounts, no credit cards in your name. Everything went through your husband. Yes. That's unusual. Most spouses maintain some financial independence. Damian preferred to handle everything. Or you preferred not to ask questions. Seraphina's hands clenched under the table. I trusted my husband. That was my mistake. Was it? Park's eyes were cold. Or was it convenient? Live in a penthouse, wear expensive clothes, attend exclusive events, all without worrying where the money came from? I didn't know it was illegal. But you suspected something was wrong. No. You never wondered why your husband kept you so isolated? Why he controlled every aspect of your life? I thought, Seraphina's voice cracked, I thought that's what marriage was supposed to be. The truth of that statement hit her as she said it. She thought Damian's control was love, thought his isolation was protection, thought disappearing into his life was what good wives did. Agent Morrison exchanged a look with Park. Let's talk about Roman Vesper. Seraphina's blood went cold. What about him? You're currently living in his penthouse, correct? Yes. How long have you known him? Patricia intervened. That's not relevant to We're establishing timeline, Morrison cut in. Mrs. Cross, when did you first meet Roman Vesper? Seraphina's throat closed. She knew where this was going. 10 years ago, she said carefully. Before you married Damian Cross? Yes. And you maintained contact throughout your marriage? No. I didn't see or speak to Roman for 8 years. Until 2 weeks ago. Yes. Park pulled out a folder, slid photographs across the table. These were taken outside Roman Vesper's building over the past 10 days. You entering, you leaving, sometimes alone, sometimes with him. She tapped one photo. This one shows you kissing him on the balcony. Seraphina's face burned. What does that have to do with Damian's fraud? Patricia demanded. We're wondering if Mrs. Cross had motivation to see her husband's empire collapse, Morrison said. A woman living with a known criminal, A woman who benefits financially from her husband's downfall. A woman who appeared publicly with Roman Vesper hours before Celeste Whitmore exposed damaging evidence. You think I orchestrated this? Seraphina's voice rose. You think I convinced Celeste to destroy her own life so I could, what, get revenge? Did you? No, but you knew Celeste had information. She called you 3 days before the gala. Seraphina's stomach dropped. How did you? We have phone records, Mrs. Cross. Celeste Whitmore called your cell phone. The call lasted 4 minutes. What did you discuss? She warned me Damian was planning something, that's all. Did you tell her to go public? No, I barely spoke to her. Seraphina's hands were shaking. I was trying to survive, that's all I was doing. Trying to get out of a marriage that was killing me piece by piece. Park's expression didn't change. By running to Roman Vesper. By running anywhere that wasn't Damian. Convenient that anywhere happened to be a man with the resources and connections to destroy your husband. Patricia stood. This interview is over. You're fishing for conspiracy theories instead of investigating actual crimes. My client has cooperated fully. Unless you're charging her with something, we're leaving. Morrison and Park exchanged another look. We're not charging her, Morrison said finally. Yet, but Mrs. Cross should stay available. We'll likely have more questions. Patricia guided Seraphina out. They didn't speak until they were in the car. That was bad, Seraphina whispered. That was them throwing weight around. Patricia's voice was tight. They have nothing concrete or they'd have arrested you. They're hoping you'll panic and say something incriminating. They think I'm working with Roman to take down Damian. They think a lot of things, none of which they can prove. Patricia turned to face her. But Seraphina, you need to be careful. Your relationship with Roman looks suspicious. The timeline looks suspicious. I can defend you against criminal charges, but I can't defend you against public opinion. What does that mean? It means the press is going to run with this. Spurned wife teams up with dangerous ex-lover to destroy billionaire husband. It's a great story, true or not. Seraphina closed her eyes. So what do I do? Distance yourself from Roman, publicly, immediately. Move out. Stop being photographed together. Make it clear you're a victim, not a co-conspirator. The words felt like bullets. When Seraphina got back to the penthouse, Roman was waiting. One look at her face and he poured whiskey. She told him everything. The questions, the photos. The implication that she and Roman had planned Damian's downfall together. They think we're working together, she finished. They think this was all some elaborate revenge scheme. Roman's expression was carefully blank. And Patricia's advice? Distance myself from you, move out. Stop being seen together. Smart advice. Seraphina looked at him. You agree? I agree she's protecting your interests. Roman took a slow sip of whiskey. Which is her job. But I'm not going to tell you what to do, Seraphina. You want to leave? Leave. You want to stay? Stay. Either way, I'll make sure you're safe. That's not fair. What's not fair? Putting this on me. Making it my choice. Her voice cracked. I don't know what the right choice is anymore. I don't know who to trust. I don't know if staying here makes me guilty of something or if leaving means Damian wins or... She broke. Just completely shattered. Sank onto the couch and put her head in her hands while 8 years of running, 5 years of disappearing, 2 weeks of warfare crashed over her all at once. Roman didn't move. Didn't try to comfort her. Just let her break in whatever way she needed. When she finally looked up, eyes swollen and throat raw, he was still there. Still watching with that impossible patience. I can't do this, she whispered. Any of this. The investigations. The press. The constant feeling like I'm one wrong move away from prison. I just want to disappear. Then disappear. Just like that? Just like that. Roman set down his glass. I told you before. I can set you up anywhere. New identity. New life. You could be on a plane tonight. And you? I'd miss you every day for the rest of my life. He said it simply, factually. But I'd live with it if it meant you were safe and free. Seraphina stared at him. At this man who'd loved her for 10 years, who'd let her go once, who was offering to let her go again. Why? She asked. Why would you do that? Because I love you. Roman smiled without humor. And love means wanting someone to be happy, even if that happiness doesn't include you. The words broke something final inside her, because she realized with devastating clarity she didn't want to disappear. She wanted to fight. Not for Damian, not for revenge, not even for vindication. For herself. For the woman she used to be. The one who destroyed collectors and art galleries. The one who took up space without apologizing. The one who'd forgotten how to be afraid. "I'm not leaving," she said. Roman's expression shifted. "Seraphina, I'm not leaving. I'm not running. I'm not disappearing into some new identity because federal agents asked uncomfortable questions." She stood. "Damian tried to erase me. I won't finish the job for him. Even if staying means more investigations, more scrutiny, more risk. Especially then." Seraphina's voice was steady now. "Sure. Because the only way they can make me guilty is if I act guilty, and I'm done being afraid." Roman studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "Okay. Okay? Okay." He stood. "Then we fight, but we do it smart. We get ahead of the narrative before it buries you." "How?" Roman pulled out his phone, made a call. "Catherine Ashford, it's Roman Vesper. I need a favor." Over the next 48 hours, Roman orchestrated something Seraphina didn't fully understand until it was already in motion. Catherine Ashford, society matron, charity board director, old money personified, gave an interview to the New York Times. In it, she talked about knowing Seraphina for years, about watching Damian isolate her systematically, about invitations declined because Damian said Seraphina was too tired or not feeling well, about how the social circles had noticed the erasure happening in real time and done nothing. "We failed that girl," Catherine said in the article. "We saw a man destroying his wife's identity, and we looked the other way because it was more convenient than confronting him." Other voices followed. A former colleague from the art gallery where Seraphina used to work, a neighbor from the townhouse, even the housekeeper Damian had fired 3 years ago for being too friendly with Seraphina. All of them painting the same picture: a woman systematically isolated, controlled, erased. Not a criminal, a victim. The narrative started shifting, slowly at first, then faster as more people came forward, as journalists started investigating Damian's pattern of behavior, as the story became less about fraud and more about domestic control masquerading as marriage. Seraphina watched it happen from Roman's penthouse, barely able to process that people were defending her, people she barely remembered, people who'd witnessed her disappearance and felt guilty about their silence. "It's working," Roman said one evening, showing her another article. "Public opinion is turning. You're not the villain anymore." "I was never the villain." "I know. But now everyone else knows too." Seraphina should have felt relief. Instead, she felt exposed. Because to paint her as a victim, people had to discuss every humiliating detail of her marriage, every way Damian had controlled her, every time she'd chosen silence over confrontation. Her weakness was being turned into evidence of innocence, and she hated it. 3 days later, she got another call. This time from Damian himself. She almost didn't answer, but something made her press accept. "Seraphina." His voice was hollow, destroyed. "We need to talk." "We have nothing to talk about." "Please, 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking." Against every instinct, she agreed to meet. Roman was against it. "It's a trap. He's going to try to manipulate you into signing something or saying something his lawyers can use. I'll be careful." Careful isn't enough with Damian. But Seraphina had already made up her mind. They met at a coffee shop in Midtown. Neutral ground, public. Patricia came along but waited at a separate table. Damian looked like he'd aged 10 years, gray under his eyes, suit rumpled, hands shaking slightly as he wrapped them around a coffee cup he didn't drink from. "Thank you for coming," he said. Seraphina said nothing. "I know you hate me," Damian continued. "You should. His voice cracked. "I destroyed everything, my business, my reputation, us." "There was no us. There hasn't been for a long time." "I know." He looked up, eyes red-rimmed. "But there was once, wasn't there? Before I before I turned into whatever this is. Seraphina thought back. Tried to remember when she'd loved him, if she'd ever loved him. Couldn't find it. Why am I here, Damian? Because I need you to know something. He leaned forward. I never meant to hurt you. I genuinely thought I was protecting you, keeping you safe from the uglier parts of my work. I thought if you didn't know, you couldn't be implicated. That's not protection. That's control. I know that now. His hands clenched around the cup. I'm going to prison, Seraphina. The evidence Celeste gave them. It's ironclad. My lawyers say I'm looking at 15 to 20 years, maybe more. She felt nothing, no satisfaction, no sympathy, nothing. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Damian said. I know I don't deserve it, but I'm asking you to tell the truth. I have been. To the FBI, yes. But to the press, he swallowed hard. They're making me into a monster. And maybe I am. But you know I'm not. I'm not what they're saying. I made mistakes, terrible mistakes. But I'm not. You replaced me, Seraphina said quietly. You planned my erasure like a business strategy. You married another woman while I was still your wife. You controlled every aspect of my life until I forgot I was a person. She leaned forward. So yes, Damian, you are exactly what they're saying. His face crumpled. I came here thinking I might feel something, Seraphina continued. Anger, hatred, something. But I feel nothing. You're just a stranger who stole 5 years of my life, and I'm done giving you any more. She stood. Damian grabbed her wrist. Seraphina, please. Patricia was there instantly. Let go of her. He did. Hands raised. Surrender. Seraphina walked out without looking back. On the sidewalk, Roman was waiting, leaning against his car like he'd known exactly when she'd need him. You okay? He asked. I think so. Seraphina took a shaky breath. I think I just closed a door I should have closed 8 years ago. Which one? The one that made me think I needed saving. She looked at him. I don't need you to save me, Roman. I need you to stand beside me while I save myself. Roman's smile was slow and genuine. I can do that. They got in the car. Halfway back to the penthouse, Seraphina's phone rang. Agent Morrison. She answered on speaker. Mrs. Cross, we've completed our initial investigation. Based on the evidence, we're satisfied you had no knowledge of or participation in your husband's criminal activities. Relief flooded through her. However, Morrison continued, we will need you to testify at trial. Your testimony about Damian's behavior, his control over your life, his isolation tactics, it establishes motive and pattern. When? Trial's set for 6 months from now. We'll be in touch with specifics. He hung up. Seraphina looked at Roman. 6 months. 6 months of depositions, prep sessions, and waiting. Roman's jaw tightened. You sure you want to go through with it? Do I have a choice? There's always a choice. Seraphina thought about Damian in that coffee shop. Broken. Desperate. Still trying to control the narrative even as his world collapsed. She thought about Celeste, hiding in a hotel room, rebuilding from nothing. She thought about the woman she'd been 2 weeks ago, invisible, erased, too afraid to exist loudly. Yes, she said firmly, I'm testifying, and I'm telling the truth, all of it. Roman nodded. Then we have 6 months to make sure you're ready. But that night, lying awake in the guest room that still didn't feel like home, Seraphina wondered if she'd ever be ready. Ready to sit in a courtroom and dissect her marriage in front of strangers. Ready to answer questions about every humiliating moment. Ready to become the public face of what happened when control masqueraded as love. She got up, walked onto the balcony where Roman stood smoking a cigarette he probably shouldn't have been smoking. Can't sleep? He asked. Can you? Haven't slept properly in 10 years. She leaned against the railing beside him. What happens after the trial? What do you mean? After I testify? After Damian goes to prison? After the news cycle moves on and we're just... She gestured vaguely. Whatever we are. What happens? Roman was quiet for a long time. I don't know. That's not like you. I know. He stubbed out the cigarette. But I meant what I said before. This is your choice, your life. I'm not going to script it for you. What if I want you to? You don't. You just think you do because it's easier than deciding for yourself. The words stung because they were true. I'm scared, Seraphina admitted, of testifying, of what comes after, she swallowed hard, of this, us, whatever we're becoming. Roman turned to face her. Then be scared. Fear doesn't make you weak. Damian used to say fear was just lack of preparation. Damian's in federal custody awaiting trial. Maybe don't take life advice from him. Despite everything, Seraphina laughed. Roman's hand found hers. We have 6 months before trial. Let's use them. For what? For you to figure out who Seraphina Vale is when nobody's defining her. He squeezed her hand. For you to decide what you want. Not what Damian wanted, not what I want, what you want. And if I don't know, then you have 6 months to find out. The words should have been comforting. Instead, they felt like the hardest challenge she'd ever faced, because Seraphina realized with cold, brutal clarity she had no idea who she was. She'd spent 5 years as Damian's wife. Before that, 2 years as Roman's lover. Before that, a scattered collection of identities she'd tried on and discarded like ill-fitting clothes. She'd never just been herself, didn't even know what that looked like. I need time, she said quietly, to figure this out. Alone. Roman's hand tightened on hers for just a second, then released. Okay. Okay? Okay? His voice was steady, controlled, but she heard the fracture underneath. How much time? I don't know. A few weeks? Maybe longer? Where will you go? Seraphina hadn't thought that far ahead. I don't know that either. Roman pulled out his phone, made a call. Marcus, I need you to find Seraphina an apartment. Something temporary, furnished, safe neighborhood. Somewhere she can breathe. He paused. No, not my building. Somewhere completely separate. And Marcus, make sure it's registered under her name only. He hung up. Marcus will have options by tomorrow, Roman said. You can look at them and choose. Whatever you want. Roman, don't. His voice went rough. Don't apologize. Don't explain. You're doing what you need to do. I respect that. But Seraphina saw the pain flickering behind his eyes, saw him already bracing for her to leave, already accepting that loving her meant losing her. Again. This isn't me running, she said softly. This is me trying to figure out how to stay. Roman looked at her for a long moment. I know. The next morning, Marcus sent over 3 apartment listings. Seraphina chose a studio in the village. Small, bright, nothing like the penthouse or Damian's townhouse or anywhere she'd ever lived before. A space that was entirely hers. She packed her few belongings. Roman watched from the doorway but didn't help, didn't interfere. Just let her choose what to take and what to leave behind. When the car arrived, he walked her down. On the sidewalk, he pulled her into a hug that felt like goodbye, even though they both knew it wasn't supposed to be. Call if you need anything, he said into her hair. Money, protection, lawyers, anything. I will. I mean it, Seraphina. Don't disappear on me again. She pulled back to look at him. I won't. But as the car pulled away and she watched Roman's silhouette shrink in the rear window, Seraphina wondered if she was lying, wondered if disappearing was the only thing she'd ever actually been good at. The studio apartment was exactly as advertised, small, bright, empty. Seraphina stood in the middle of it, surrounded by boxes she hadn't unpacked, and felt the weight of choice pressing down like physical pressure. This was freedom. This was what she'd fought for. So why did it feel like drowning? Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered without thinking. Seraphina Vale? A woman's voice. Professional. Unfamiliar. Yes? This is Dr. Sarah Chen calling from Manhattan Medical. I'm a psychiatrist specializing in trauma recovery. Your name was given to me by Patricia Reeves. She thought you might benefit from counseling as you prepare for trial. Seraphina's first instinct was to say no, to insist she was fine, that she didn't need therapy. But that was Damian's voice, the one that said therapy was self-indulgent. Yes, she heard herself say. I think I would like that. They scheduled an appointment for the following week. After hanging up, Seraphina sank onto the floor of her empty apartment and let herself acknowledge the truth. She was not okay. Might never be okay. But for the first time in 8 years, she was choosing to try. And maybe that was enough. Maybe choosing was the point. Outside, Manhattan moved on. The city that never slept. The city that ate people alive and spit out bones. But Seraphina Vale was still breathing, still standing, still learning how to take up space in a world that had spent years teaching her she didn't deserve any. And somewhere across the city, Roman Vesper stood at his penthouse window, watching snow beginning to fall, and wondered if letting her go meant losing her forever, or if love had always meant holding on tight enough to let go when it mattered most. The first therapy session lasted 47 minutes before Seraphina walked out. Dr. Sarah Chen had asked her to describe her marriage in 3 words, and Seraphina's throat had closed completely. She'd sat there in that tasteful office with its soft lighting and expensive furniture, trying to find language for 5 years of systematic erasure, and come up empty. "I can't do this," she'd said finally. Dr. Chen hadn't tried to stop her, just handed her a card with a direct number. "When you're ready." Seraphina threw the card away 3 times, retrieved it twice. The studio apartment became both sanctuary and prison, 400 square feet where she could breathe without someone monitoring her oxygen intake, but also 400 square feet of crushing silence that made her wonder if she'd made a catastrophic mistake leaving Roman's penthouse. She didn't call him, didn't call anyone, just existed in careful isolation while Manhattan raged outside her windows and federal prosecutors built their case against Damian Cross, using pieces of her shattered marriage as evidence. 3 weeks passed like watching paint dry on a burning building. Then Patricia called. "We have a problem," she said without preamble. "Damian's legal team is claiming duress. They're saying you and Roman conspired to frame him using Celeste as a weapon." Seraphina's blood went cold. "That's insane." "That's their defense strategy. And they're subpoenaing your phone records, emails, bank statements, everything, to prove you had contact with Roman before the gala." "I did have contact with Roman. I called him the night I found out about Celeste." "I know, which is why this is a problem." Patricia's voice was tight. "They're going to argue you rekindled your relationship specifically to destroy Damian. That Roman had motive, old rivalry, criminal competition, whatever, and you provided access and information." "I didn't provide anything. I didn't even know about Damian's fraud until Celeste exposed it." "Can you prove that?" The question hung like a noose. Seraphina's hands were shaking. "I don't know how to prove I didn't know something." "Exactly. Which is why Damian's team is running with this narrative. They paint you as the scorned wife who weaponized a criminal ex-boyfriend for revenge, and suddenly their client looks less like a predator and more like a victim." Seraphina wanted to throw the phone across the room, wanted to scream, wanted to set fire to every legal document that treated her life like a chess match. Instead, she said very quietly, "What do I do?" "You prepare for war, because when trial starts in 4 months, they're going to eviscerate you on the stand. Every detail of your relationship with Roman, every conversation, every night you spent in his penthouse. They're going to make you look calculating and vindictive." "I'm the victim here." "I know, but victims don't photograph well when they're sleeping with dangerous men." Patricia paused. "You need to decide, Seraphina, right now. Are you willing to fight this publicly? Because it's going to get ugly, uglier than anything you've faced so far." Seraphina thought about the last 3 weeks, the isolation, the silence, the careful reconstruction of an identity built on nothing but space and breathing room. She thought about Damian in that coffee shop, broken and desperate, still trying to control the narrative. She thought about Roman standing on his balcony, cigarette smoke curling into winter air, waiting for her to decide if love was worth the cost of staying. "Yes," she said, "I'm willing to fight." "Then we start tomorrow, 9 a.m. My office. Bring everything you have, journals, emails, texts, anything that shows your state of mind during the marriage." After Patricia hung up, Seraphina sat in her empty studio and faced a devastating truth. She had nothing. No journals, no personal emails, no texts to friends because she'd had no friends. 5 years of marriage, and the only evidence of her existence was a collection of society page photos where she looked like an expensive ghost. She'd erased herself so completely that now, when she needed proof of her own suffering, there was nothing to show. The realization hit like a physical blow. She grabbed her phone, scrolled to Roman's number, hesitated with her thumb over the call button. 3 weeks of silence. 3 weeks of him respecting her space. 3 weeks of... The phone rang in her hand. Roman's name on the screen. She answered. "I heard," he said without greeting. "Patricia called me. Told me about Damian's defense strategy. I don't know what to do." "Yes, you do." His voice was steady. "Sure. You fight, and you let me help." "Roman, I'm not asking permission, Seraphina. I'm telling you what's happening. Damian's team wants to make me the villain. Fine, I'll be the villain, but I'm not letting them destroy you in the process. They'll say we're working together, that this proves their conspiracy theory. Let them. I have lawyers too, better ones." A pause. "And I have something Damian doesn't." "What?" "The truth." The words settled between them like a weapon. "Can I come over?" Roman asked. "We need to talk strategy." Seraphina looked around her studio, at the space she'd claimed as exclusively hers, at the freedom that suddenly felt like abandonment. "Yes," she said. "Please." He arrived 20 minutes later carrying Chinese takeout and a leather briefcase that probably cost more than her monthly rent. They sat on her floor, she didn't have furniture yet, and spread documents across worn hardwood while eating lo mein straight from containers. "Damian's defense has 3 prongs," Roman said, pointing to a legal memo. 1. You're a scorned wife seeking revenge. 2. I'm a criminal rival using you to eliminate competition. 3. Celeste was our pawn, manipulated into destroying Damian on our behalf. All of which is completely false. Truth doesn't matter. Narrative does. Roman pulled out another document. "So we build a counter-narrative, one that makes their conspiracy theory look ridiculous." "How?" "By showing exactly how isolated you were, how controlled, how impossible it would have been for you to orchestrate anything." He tapped the paper. "I've had investigators pulling records, credit card statements showing you had no independent access to money, security footage from the townhouse showing you rarely left, testimony from household staff about Damian's control over your schedule, your contacts, your entire existence." Seraphina's stomach twisted. "You investigated me?" "I investigated your marriage. There's a difference." Roman's eyes were serious. "Seraphina, if we're doing this, we're doing it right. That means exposing every ugly detail of what Damian did to you, every way he isolated you, every method of control. I don't want my entire life dissected in court. I know, but it's happening whether you want it or not. The only question is whether we control the narrative or let Damian's lawyers write it for us." She wanted to argue, wanted to find some magical third option where she maintained privacy while proving innocence. But Roman was right. The trial was coming whether she was ready or not. "Okay," she said finally. "Show me what you found." Over the next 3 hours, Roman walked her through a forensic reconstruction of her marriage that was more thorough than anything she could have assembled herself. Bank records showing every purchase required Damian's approval. Phone logs showing her contact list had shrunk from 47 people to 3 over the course of 5 years. Calendar entries showing canceled appointments, declined invitations, isolated existence. "You became a ghost," Roman said quietly, methodically, systematically. This wasn't you choosing privacy. This was someone else choosing your erasure. Seraphina stared at the evidence of her own disappearance. "How did I let this happen?" "You didn't let it happen. It was done to you, slowly enough that you didn't notice until you'd already vanished." The words were meant to be comforting. They felt like an autopsy. Roman stayed until past midnight, helping her organize documents, building timelines, creating a narrative that made her look like a victim instead of a conspirator. When he finally stood to leave, Seraphina walked him to the door. "Thank you," she said. "Don't thank me yet. We haven't won anything." He paused in the doorway. "Trial's in 4 months. Between now and then, Damian's team is going to throw everything they have at destroying your credibility. You ready for that?" "No, but I'm doing it anyway." Roman's smile was small and fierce. "Good." He started to leave, then turned back. "I miss you," he said quietly. I needed you to know that. I miss you, and I'm not going to pressure you or rush you or make this harder than it already is. But I miss you." Seraphina's throat closed. "Roman?" "You don't have to say it back. You don't have to say anything. He touched her cheek once, briefly. Just don't disappear on me again, even if this isn't, just don't disappear. Then he was gone. Seraphina closed the door and leaned against it, heart hammering, wondering when exactly she'd stop knowing the difference between freedom and loneliness. The next 4 months were warfare. Damian's legal team launched a coordinated assault on Seraphina's character that was surgical in its precision. They leaked carefully edited phone records to tabloids, released statements suggesting she'd been planning to leave Damian for months, found a gallery owner from 8 years ago who remembered Seraphina and Roman's intense relationship and was happy to speculate about rekindled affairs. The press devoured it. Suddenly, Seraphina wasn't a victim anymore. She was the scheming wife, the manipulative woman who'd seduced a criminal to destroy her husband, the real villain hiding behind a mask of innocence. Patricia fought back with legal filings and counter-narratives, but mudstick's better than truth. Through it all, Roman stayed close, but not too close, came to strategy meetings, provided resources, made sure she had security when photographers started camping outside her building. But he never pushed, never demanded, never asked for more than she could give, which somehow made it worse, because Seraphina was starting to realize that the space she'd needed to find herself was actually just another form of isolation, that freedom without connection was just loneliness with better lighting. 2 weeks before trial, Dr. Chen called. "I saw the news coverage," she said. "How are you holding up?" "I'm fine." "That's not what I asked." Seraphina closed her eyes. "I don't know how to answer that question anymore." "Then maybe it's time we talked again." This time, Seraphina made it through the full session. She told Dr. Chen about Damian, about Roman, about 5 years of disappearing and 3 months of trying to remember how to exist loudly. "You're stuck," Dr. Chen said finally, "between 2 versions of yourself. The woman Damian made you and the woman Roman remembers. But neither of those is actually you." "Then who am I?" "That's what we're here to figure out." But Seraphina was running out of time to figure anything out, because trial started in 12 days, and on day 7 before trial, everything exploded. Seraphina was leaving her apartment when a black SUV pulled up. 2 men in suits stepped out. "Seraphina Vale?" one asked. "Yes." He handed her a folder. "You've been served." Her hands shook as she opened it. Civil suit, filed by Damian Cross, claiming defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and conspiracy to commit fraud. He was suing her for $20 million. Seraphina couldn't breathe. The sidewalk tilted. One of the men in suits steadied her elbow. "You okay, ma'am?" She wasn't okay. She called Patricia. "It's a pressure tactic," Patricia said immediately. "He can't win. He has no case. But he can make your life miserable for years with discovery and depositions and make it stop." "I can't. Not until after criminal trial. He's trying to rattle you, make you too scared to testify effectively." "It's working." Patricia was quiet for a moment. "Then we need to recalibrate, change the approach, go on offense instead of defense." "How?" "By giving an interview, exclusive. You tell your story before Damian's lawyers can spin it. Control the narrative for once." Every instinct screamed no. Screamed to hide, to stay quiet, to be invisible. But invisible hadn't saved her before. "Okay," Seraphina said. "Set it up." The interview happened 3 days before trial. Major network, primetime. Patricia coached her for hours on what to say, how to say it, when to show emotion and when to stay controlled. "Don't cry," Patricia said. "Tears make you look weak. Stay strong. Stay clear. This is you reclaiming your story." The interviewer was a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and sharper questions. "Mrs. Cross, your husband's legal team claims you orchestrated his downfall. What do you say to that?" Seraphina looked directly into the camera. "I say they're desperate. Desperate men create desperate narratives. You're currently living with Roman Vesper, a known criminal. Doesn't that support their claim?" "I'm not living with Roman. I have my own apartment, my own life. For the first time in 8 years. She paused. "But yes, Roman has supported me, the way actual partners support each other, not the way Damian controlled me." "You claim your husband was controlling. Can you give examples?" So she did. She told them about the isolated existence, The monitored phone calls, the canceled friendships, the systematic erasure of everything that made her human. She told them about finding the transition timeline, about Celeste, about realizing she'd been replaced like a broken appliance. She didn't cry, didn't apologize, just spoke in clear, level tones about 5 years of being slowly erased. The interview aired the night before trial started. Seraphina watched it from her studio with Roman sitting beside her on the floor. They didn't touch, didn't speak. Just watched Seraphina's face on screen telling truths that should have stayed private. When it ended, Roman's phone started ringing immediately. He ignored it. "You were incredible," he said quietly. "I feel like I just stripped naked in Times Square." "You told the truth. That takes more courage than most people have." Seraphina looked at him. Really looked at him. At this man who'd spent 4 months respecting her space even though it was killing him. Who'd provided resources and protection and support without demanding anything in return. "I don't want to be alone tonight," she said. Roman's expression shifted. "Seraphina, I'm not asking for... I just don't want to be alone, please." He nodded slowly. "Okay." They lay on her mattress, still on the floor because she hadn't bought a bed frame, in careful parallel lines. Not touching, not speaking, just existing in the same space while Manhattan hummed outside and tomorrow loomed like a firing squad. Somewhere around 3 a.m., Seraphina's hand found Roman's. He laced their fingers together without comment. And they stayed like that until dawn bled through the windows and reality came crashing back. Trial started with jury selection. Seraphina sat in the gallery watching 12 strangers get chosen to judge her husband. Watched lawyers argue about bias and prejudice, and whether someone could be impartial after seeing her interview. 3 jurors were dismissed for admitting they'd already formed opinions. The rest claimed they could be fair. Seraphina didn't believe them. Opening statements happened on day 2. The prosecution painted Damian as a calculating predator who defrauded investors of hundreds of millions while living a double life with 2 wives. Damian's defense painted him as a man whose vindictive ex-wife had conspired with criminals to destroy him. Both narratives were partially true. Both were completely wrong. Seraphina was called to testify on day 4. She wore a navy suit Patricia had chosen. Conservative. Professional. Nothing like the black silk dress from the gala. She looked like someone's respectable sister, someone who definitely hadn't spent 5 years being systematically erased. The prosecution went first. They asked about the marriage, about Damian's control, about the isolation and the erasure and the discovery of Celeste. Seraphina answered clearly, calmly, stuck to facts. Then Damian's lawyer stood for cross-examination. His name was Richard Castellan, and he had a reputation for destroying witnesses. "Mrs. Cross," he started, voice smooth, friendly, "you claim you had no knowledge of your husband's business dealings. Is that correct?" "Yes." "Yet you lived in a $12 million townhouse, wore designer clothes, attended exclusive events, all funded by money you now claim to know nothing about." "I knew Damian was successful. I didn't know he was committing fraud." Convenient. Not knowing. Castellan smiled. "Tell me, when did you reconnect with Roman Vesper?" "The night I found out about Celeste." "And why call him specifically? Why not a friend, a family member, a therapist?" "I didn't have friends anymore. Damian had..." Yes, your husband isolated you. We've heard that narrative." Castellan waved dismissively. "But you had a phone. You could have called anyone. Yet you chose Roman Vesper, a man you'd been intimately involved with years earlier. A man with extensive criminal connections. A man who had every reason to want your husband destroyed." Patricia objected. The judge sustained. But the damage was done. Castellan spent the next 3 hours picking apart every detail of Seraphina's relationship with Roman. Every conversation, every night in his penthouse, every appearance together. He made it look calculated, deliberate, like she'd planned the whole thing. By the time Seraphina stepped down, she was shaking so badly she could barely walk. Patricia caught her elbow. "You did fine. He's grasping at straws." But Seraphina had seen the jurors' faces. Some looked sympathetic. Others looked skeptical. And at least 2 looked like they'd already decided she was guilty of something, even if they couldn't name it. The trial dragged on for 3 more weeks. Celeste testified. Broke down crying on the stand. admitted she'd been manipulated by Damian, but insisted Seraphina had nothing to do with her decision to expose him. Financial experts testified about offshore accounts and fraudulent transfers. Character witnesses testified about Damian's reputation, his business practices, his public persona versus private reality. And through it all, Damian sat at the defense table looking like a man who'd been wronged instead of a man who'd destroyed lives for profit. The jury deliberated for 6 days. Seraphina spent those 6 days in her studio, unable to eat, unable to sleep, unable to do anything except wait for 12 strangers to decide if her suffering had been real or performance art. Roman came by every evening, brought food she didn't eat, sat with her in silence, left when she needed space. On day 6, Patricia called. "Verdict's in. We need to be in court in 2 hours." Seraphina threw up twice before leaving her apartment. The courtroom was packed, press, spectators, people whose lives weren't imploding, but who wanted to watch someone else's collapse in real time. Seraphina sat in the front row, Roman beside her, Patricia on her other side. The jury filed in. None of them looked at Damian. "That was good," Patricia had said. "When juries won't look at the defendant, it usually means conviction." The 4 persons stood. "On the count of wire fraud, we find the defendant guilty." Seraphina's breath caught. "On the count of securities fraud, we find the defendant guilty." The litany continued. Guilty, guilty, guilty. 15 counts, 15 guilty verdicts. The courtroom erupted. Damian's face went white. His lawyers started shouting objections. The judge banged his gavel. And Seraphina just sat there, numb, watching her husband, her ex-husband, realize he was going to prison for the rest of his productive life. She should feel vindicated, should feel victorious. Instead, she just felt tired. Roman's hand found hers under the table, squeezed once. "It's over," he murmured. But it wasn't over, because as Damian was being led away in handcuffs, he turned and looked directly at Seraphina. His mouth moved. She couldn't hear over the noise, but she could read his lips. "This isn't finished." A chill ran down her spine. The civil suit was still active. $20 million. Damian might be going to prison, but his lawyers could drag her through discovery for years. Patricia saw her face. "We'll handle it. He has no case. We'll get it dismissed." But 3 days later, something else happened. Seraphina was walking to the bodega near her apartment when a car pulled up beside her. Window rolled down. A woman she'd never seen before. "You think you won?" the woman called. "You think putting him away means you're safe?" Seraphina froze. Damian has friends, people who don't forget, people who don't forgive. The woman smiled. It wasn't kind. "Watch your back, Mrs. Cross. This isn't over." The car sped away. Seraphina stood on the sidewalk, heart hammering, while pedestrians flowed around her like water around a stone. She called Roman. He answered on the first ring. "What's wrong?" She told him. "Pack a bag," he said immediately. "Right now, I'm sending a car." "Roman, no arguments. Someone just threatened you. You're not staying in that apartment alone."